the Super Secret Sex Show.
It's
Hello.
the Super Secret Sex Show. I'm your host, John, and joining me today, it's Melissa. Hey there, Melissa.
Hey. I promise you, my grandmother, who is long past now, but I know that she thought I only had sex, well, I'll say 3 times because we did have a third child, right? But so that's in our family, the number of children you have is the times you've had sex, and that's it. And that was just to fulfill your duty to bring in grandchildren. You know, that was the job. So yeah.
Familial duty.
That's
Okay.
right. That's
You're
right.
like, all right, honey, this one's for grandma.
Right, exactly. I know. And she only knew how many times we had to practice before. She told my cousin, who's significantly older than me, on her wedding day, and my cousin Terry, she told me this later on. She said, you know, on my wedding day, Grandma came in and she said, now look, I know you're gonna have to, you know, do this thing. And I couldn't even say the word sex, right? And I just want you to know, you don't have to like it. You just have to do it once in a while.
Go ahead and like it.
I know. I said to Terry, I said, what did you say? She goes, I didn't really know what to say because I didn't want to break her heart to let her know that I already did like it. But I said, oh, okay.
It breaks my heart that she got to that age. And
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So you just have to, I'm like, it's okay to like it. If it's not, then I'm not okay because I like it.
So how important is sex to you, and how has that changed over the years?
Oh, this is a really, it's a good question and an interesting question for me to answer at this time in my life. You know, sex has been important to me. And so my relationship isn't based on sex, but I have found that there are times that when my husband and I looked at each other, we didn't like each other. And we've talked about, you know, at some point, you know, do we keep going? But the one thing we always did good was sex. So we were always like, well, we're at least good at one thing, you know, and we'll figure out the rest. But I think it is important to maintain that intimacy. But I've always felt very blessed because, I mean, my husband taught me a lot about sex because, again, he's really the first one that, you know, taught me that it was okay for me to like it, and that if I wasn't liking it, then maybe the person wasn't doing it right. Mm-hmm. So, you know, so that it's really important, you know. I mean, it's what brings people together, I think. Look, there's the man right now.
What's up, John?
Hello.
Joe right now.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
That is okay. But you're welcome to answer
You
questions.
are welcome. You're a welcome guest.
So it's highly important, and it's not just because you have to do it once in a while, but it's just this intimate thing that, for whatever reason, and sometimes it's about romance, and sometimes it's just about getting laid.
Time to just bang it out.
That's right. That's okay.
And every now and then, one for grandma.
That's right. Now and then, one for grandma. Oh, I love her so much.
In your life, what is the one thing that has improved your sex life the most?
Talking it out. Talking with my partner, but also talking to my female friends. And in all honesty, sometimes talking to other guys. You have to be really careful if you're in a relationship where you're talking to someone of the opposite sex, or, you know, someone that could be potentially an intimate partner. Mm-hmm. You know, because you want to make sure that you're honest with everybody. But, you know,
people get the wrong idea. It's true.
Yeah, they do, you know, and but really talking. But I do think the most beneficial is, you know, being able to knowing that it was okay to tell my husband, that's not really doing anything for me.
Yeah.
And, you know, and being able to say, does that do something for you? And if he says yes, okay, then I don't mind it. I'm just saying that if you're doing that for my benefit, you're wasting some energy, because
every person's hooked up differently. And And an individual person will not be the same now that they were 3 years ago. So things change.
Absolutely
all the time. So
it does. And so when I say that time of my life, I am approaching 46 next week. And I'm finding that as I get older as a woman, things in my body are changing. And so is, my sexual desires, or what, turns me on, or what is a no-go. It's just interesting. So my husband and I have talked about how I'm like, sometimes I feel like you don't even know me anymore. And he said, I agree. But we were able to talk about it, and just recognize that this is just part of the natural process, right? And so it's not about giving up. It's like, okay, well, if this doesn't work anymore, we need to figure out what does. And so it's amazing to have a partner that is willing to go through all those journeys with you and listen to what you need. So
I like hearing from you. There are a lot of people that, especially when they're younger, when their partners talk to them, they kind of get an ego and they're like, oh no, the thing I'm doing is not working and I am terrible. And they see it as a criticism on their technique.
Yeah.
When I think really it's just, you got to figure each other out.
Right. I mean, and again, don't waste your energy if it's not turning me on, unless it's doing something for you, and then that's fine. But if you're doing it only for my benefit, let me just tell you, you don't need to do that. Right. I mean, we can just jump right to something else, but having those conversations and not taking offense and really listening, just because I'm like, maybe you saw that in a movie, maybe you read that in a book. Great. I appreciate that you were trying something that would make me feel good and exciting. It just doesn't. So let's read another book or whatever, and so being able to receive feedback, I guess, is an interesting word to use. Sex feedback.
Yes.
And to take it and use it, those powers for good and not evil. That would be, that is great to have a partner like that. So
what kind of conversations do you then have with your girlfriends and guy friends?
Well, so here's the thing. My husband is amazing at what he does. He's just really great. And sometimes
that went without saying.
Okay, good.
I just assumed that just from the baseline.
And it's not just to stroke his ego. So it's just when I have conversations with my girlfriends, that's not always what they're experiencing, So I'm like, how do I say, they're like, does he do that? And I'm like, nope, he really is very good at that. And so those were the conversations. But I do have my very best friend, who is now in a committed relationship. But before she was, she would tell me all sorts of things. And she would just be like, oh, this was amazing. And she goes, oh my gosh, I wish he wouldn't even have bothered. And I don't even know if that's answering the question, but our women actually talk about lots of stuff. Do you prefer a long penis or do you prefer girth? What is more important? Oh, well, that didn't feel good. Well, I think that feels good. Maybe you should be laying like this and see, or for example, if you have a partner who might not be receptive and they just keep doing the same trick over and over that's not working. If you're talking with other women and they're like, oh, that trick works for me, but when he's doing that trick, I'm in this position. And man, right? It's good to talk about sex, right?
So if the people are out there watching and they're not having these conversations with their friends, there's some benefit to be had.
Are they really your friends if you're not talking about those things? Or, I mean, so.
And so how does that then differ from when you talk with guys?
Usually guys, I'm just giving advice when they're like asking questions, right? Because I feel like the number one complaint in marriages is that there's not a healthy sex life or it's not frequent enough. And so sometimes my first question is, well, are you just bad at it? Because we have sex a lot and we've been married a long time, which I never want to hurt anybody's feelings. But
they're then like, oh, wait a minute. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Turns out that is all the time we have for today. Melissa, you have been an effervescent and amazing host. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you. I was glad to be here anytime. I'm sure my grandmother would be proud of me.
Super C.